Did you hear about the British politicians getting caught up in this scandal?
Yeah, I heard.
Getting knocked off one after another. Well, one guy did a Kevin Spacey. He had one accusation, which they weren't sure about. But then when 2 or 3 more women came forward, he got the chop. One guy didn't even get notified. The chief whip, as they call him, which is the guy who's head of the party's ministers, the party's members of parliament, he just sent a note. This guy said, "You're suspended from your job, you're suspended from the party, and we've sent the information to the police." So he's obviously facing serious charges.
Wow.
A couple of other guys have faced them. We've had some radio personalities, movie stars. Netflix have basically killed Game of Thrones dead in the water, despite it being so popular. So, yeah, they're taking it seriously. There's people coming out. But then still, did you see there was a programme called Not the 9 o'clock News, kind of a panel show, where they all tell jokes and discuss the news. And the host is a woman. She actually had to explain to these 4 men why we have to do this, because people keep saying, why are we spending so much time in the news on this? Like, it's not serious enough. So somebody touched your knee, why is that a problem? Because people shouldn't touch you unless you want them to. What's that?
Not bad.
There's a book about it. Is that the...
New book.
New book?
Yeah, it's gonna be out in 5th of January.
Okay. So you're going to recommend it?
Well, this is again by Roxanne, so kind of was...
I don't think that's a problem, though, do you? I don't think it's necessary.
About bloody rape, Jesus Christ.
Oh, no, we've had it. Well, at least we got a nice one. We got The Power, which is a nice read, and nobody real gets assaulted, so, we can chill a little. But I was looking at that, though, and the basis of The Power is that if the situation was completely reversed, women would be exactly the same as men, which you can take to a certain element, but I don't know, though, because there's a lot of powerful women in the world, and they don't do this. You never hear of Anna Wintour manhandling or PAs or anything, do you? So it does seem to be limited to men, particularly old grey men with bad suits. I don't know why the relevance of that is. So we shall see, but it's still people coming out of the woodwork now, and apparently the thing is, though, in Parliament in Britain, there's no HR department like you'd have in a company, for example. If someone in my company or your company bends the rules, the person goes to the HR department, and there's laws and rules they then have to follow, whether they want to or not. However, Parliament doesn't have that. There's no overriding body. So if you complain about being assaulted, you have to complain to your own party's mechanisms, which means they become political interests. I mean, one of the most serious cases, the Sun intern was apparently raped by a Labour minister, and she was advised by lawyers not to pursue the matter, just like with Harvey Weinstein, because they said your chances of winning are minuscule and it would wreck your life if you didn't win. And they're actually advising women to say these things. It's ludicrous. A lawyer's telling someone that the law was broken, but it's not worth pursuing. You were raped, but, that's not enough for us to take on this guy. Brutal. It's really, but then the small things are where it starts. If people get away with a little bit early on in their career, they're young, 20s, 30s, starting out, they start touching women then. No big deal, they're on the same level. Because of glass ceiling, they'll generally, as these guys will rise higher than their peers, who are female, so then all of a sudden they got power, and they just do it more and more and more. I'm quite sure half of them are denying it because they don't even know they did it. A lot of men feel entitled. They touch someone, even they don't know what they did, but they didn't even realise they were doing it because it's so automatic to them to just do these things. They don't even think about it. I'm sure half of them are saying, I'm completely understanding where this comes from. Okay, one person, 1-to-1 misunderstanding. But if you've got 2 or 3 women coming up to you saying, you did this, you've got to take a hard look at yourself and see what your behaviour is, what you're doing wrong, when people think you're capable of this sort of thing. But the apologists, some of them online, so fed up with it. Why we class? There was a programme on TV here called, what do we... Was it something like what do we do with the men? Men are the problem. How do we address the problem of men? And some guy complained, why are they classing all men in this? Stop dissimiling. The problem is men. These people getting accused are all men. So you can't get away from that. And they're from quite different backgrounds and quite different industries. It's not like it's just entertainment or just business. It's everything. It's everywhere. I mean, there's one radio personality who's in Top Gear, a very famous guy. He's now been accused of, he apparently flashes his genitals to people in certain circumstances. Now, how can anybody possibly not know that's not a right thing to do? Because they get away with it. I mean, if you do it to someone and you do it to another person and years go by and none of these women ever say anything, you just think, oh well, you know, you can choose to think you're not doing anything wrong. And the other one I hate the most is, oh, that was different times then. It was things were acceptable. No, they weren't. Because people didn't speak out doesn't mean they were acceptable. The people tried. Lots of women tried. That's the other thing that's coming out. Hundreds of women are coming saying, we did try to do these things. And, you know, nobody did anything. So we shall see. Is there any industries that haven't been singled out?
No idea.
No, I'm trying to think one. Don't know if I can't think of a sector that's missed this.
Right.
No. Sport, well, they had the bad one. Yeah, sport, entertainment, politics, I don't know. IT.
Yeah.
IT. Google got into trouble recently, didn't they?
Exactly.
People came out, didn't they?
Yeah.
People were complaining they were, you know, some guy even wrote a memo saying that it's perfectly understandable when we get treated that way. It's just biology. Some other idiocy. Oh well. So where do you think it'll end? Do you think it'll keep snowballing, or do you think it'll just eventually get calmed down? I mean, will it make a difference? That's
It'll
the
probably
thing.
snowball for a little while longer, I would think.
But if we clear out all these ones who get accused and we get rid of them all, will that be the end of it? Do we think the next generation of guys are going to learn from that, or do you think they'll just let the smoke clear and business as usual?
Well,
They'll probably.
they must. If right now we see just all coming out, so like men's and women's coming out, like this person sexual harass me, this person. Some of the celebrities actually admitted that they do that and they are sorry. Or like Kevin Spacey do something ridiculous because he
came out.
First he told us he don't remember this, that he was probably so drunk to remember, and then he just said, but by the way, I have I have lots of relationships with men, and now I'm fucking gay. So what about the sexual harassment? So
yeah, and what about the fact this kid was 14? You know, you're kind of missing the point here. Whether it was a man or a woman, he was underage by miles. It wasn't like he was a 17-year-old that looked older. He was 14 years old. You know, but the very fact that he thought coming out as gay would somehow deflect from this shows you how touchy he was.
And now the LGBT community is actually pissed off because that is like not very good view on the LGBT community, especially that they have own problems like for ages. So now
that's the thing, they're associating gay with paedophile again. Took years to get rid of that stigma.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to do. It's odd. I mean, the different tax. The trouble is, though, that nobody believes anybody in authority now. We've got 4 politicians particularly who are claiming they absolutely didn't do it, and they've no idea where it's coming from, and they're not that kind of person, and all of this. And we don't know now what the situation is. We don't know what's going on. We don't know if there are people coming out, because there's no advantage to these women coming out. It's not like if you come out, you can sell your story to the Sunday papers and make a load of money. There's no benefit for these people coming forward. Most of them don't even get named. So you got to think this. And also, if it's one person, like I said, you could, maybe it was a misunderstanding. You don't know. But when it gets to be more than that, you've got to think there's got to be something. You
Right.
might not know you're guilty, but you are. I mean, Kevin Spacey tried to head it off at the pass by. I mean, there must be so many of these people in his position who are trying to duck and cover now. Because I know when Wallstein fell, it was the whole house of cards, no
Mm-hmm.
pun intended,
Right.
have come down, and it just keeps reverberating around. But the thing is, it's annoying that it took this kind of event before these things came to light. I mean, and there's still men and women defending these people's actions. One idiot came out, I don't know who she was now, and she says, oh, these young women want respect, you've got to earn it. No, you don't. You treat people with respect because that's what you do. Nobody's got to fight their way to earn respect from people when it comes to something as fundamental as where you put your hands. And once they say, I'm not a groper, I think, well, you need to define what you mean by that, because obviously someone thinks you are. And more to the point, you obviously didn't bother to check with this person what they felt about these things before and after, didn't they? They never followed up or anything. You know, they never asked to see the person again or tried to find out where they were. They just brushed it under the carpet. So we shall see who's next. But it's disappointing though, because a lot of the people getting caught up in this, you thought they were quite okay people, didn't you? You know, I mean, Weinstein, you've always thought power mogul. He's never come across as a particularly, you know.
Right now you have, first was like Weinstein, the biggest one, because like now it's like 86 women, I think, accused him.
You started with Bill
but-
Cosby before.
Yeah,
That's true, yeah. Yeah,
that's
he was
true.
the first, wasn't he? But then we assumed because
but
it's isolated
still you
case.
have Bill Cosby, Weinstein, then Kevin Spacey, now just Dustin Hoffman as well.
Oh yeah,
I didn't hear on that one.
was
Okay.
creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dustin Hoffman. He was working on a movie with a 17-year-old girl. It was her first picture, and he was basically making innuendos. He was hitting on her. He was touching her. He was just basically being a creepy old guy, and he kept this up for months until she eventually left, and she never really went back to acting afterwards because she was just so disillusioned with it. And he said he didn't at first, didn't he? He's eventually admitted he did, and he says it was inappropriate conduct. But I hear with the next one, if someone else comes forward, he's finished. As it is, his career's on the rocks, because Kevin Spacey, work that he's already done for people is getting shelved. You know, things he was going to start working on have been suspended. His movies are going to be, you know, so it's... But it is weird though. I don't see how any man can not know that's not right for a man because at the time he'd be, I don't know what age he was, 45, something like that. He certainly wasn't a kid. And she was 17 and he was basically hitting on her all the time.
Yeah, that was the time when he was playing, that was on the set on the Tootsie.
Yeah.
So he was like 30, I think.
Yeah,
30,
still,
40.
I mean, let's face it, unless you're 17, you don't hit 17-year-old girls. It's just, you know, who doesn't know that? You know, because they're kids, aren't they? I mean, 2 years before, most of them are still in school at that age, so, you know, it's just not done. Okay, some girls are older than others, some people are older at 17 than others are, but when someone says no, or clearly don't like what you're doing, you know, if you can't tell the difference between a woman acquiescing to your requests and not, then you need to go find out, and quick. Because, but I think it's, like I said, I actually opened a thread on this to expand it out a bit. I want to know how much of it is down to the power these men have. I mean, if they didn't have the power they had, they couldn't do it. But I raised the question, would they do it if they didn't have? Would it occur to them to do these things if they didn't know they're going to be immune from it? Because it's not normal behaviour. I don't know normal guys who walk into a pub and say, hi, I work with so-and-so. You're really cute. I'll just go manhandle you and come round to my place and do what I like. Very few would even think of doing that because they'd know they'd get caught and disciplined if they did. But when you're in a position, and particularly adoration as well, I think fans might have a lot to do with it. I mean, if you're someone like Dustin Hoffman, you've got hundreds of women literally asking you to marry them all the time, throwing themselves at them effectively, or at least online and, you know, through a medium. They're not literally doing it. But perhaps these guys, that line gets blurred and they start thinking every single young woman they want, if she's a fan, means she wants to sleep with them.
Yeah, but now it's kind of it's different way when you look on sexual harassment, because ages ago was like was so like different way to actually say that this is actually sexual harassment. Now you have now you have verbal can be sexual harass. So you just like with or say something, or you have nice tits. That is already sexual harassment.
It is, yeah.
So
it always wants them.
it's not always end up on like touching or something like that. But
No. Well, that like I said, the abuse is determined by the person being abused.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, people make excuses. It's not complicated. If you want to know how far you can go with someone, ask. It's just that simple. If you think you're getting the wrong signals, ask. That's all. Every man, if you ask before you act, you're never going to get in trouble. If you just say to someone, is this okay? That if they say yes, and make sure they can say it. Don't do it like someone powerful, like these powerful men. You know, do you want to go out with me surrounded by their entourage, or in the middle of a movie that's your first production and you don't want to lose your job? You have to do it properly, alone, like basically like the rest of us. You want to go out with someone, ask them out. It's not that complicated. You don't have to get clever about it. I mean, that always got me is weird. These guys like Kevin Spacey, he wants to date someone, ask them. You know, he's famous, he's rich, he's a movie star. You would think quite a few people probably want to sleep with him. So ask. What's all this creepy arranging meetings and strange intermediates? And it just seems really weird how... That's the bit of it I think they need to answer for, because the defence is based on not knowing or not being true. Or basically, you know, and that's just weird.
Yeah, but you see, so how I say before that now you hear everything they're coming out, but now we must wait what the actual law do with that, because from Hollywood you see that Hollywood finally is like pissed off, finally, because everything was going on in Hollywood like they normally was take care of that, or if they hear like some producers or director or whatever was harassed, that was nothing was coming out. But now that starts coming out, so you have like penalties bloody from Hollywood is like what they do with Weinstein. They throw him from the academy.
Yeah,
they throw him from producer membership. Of the lifetime he cannot like join to them anymore. I mean, they throw him from his own company.
Yeah, but that's what they should do. I mean, like, we had a case recently, when I was a kid, we had a case where a guy we know got picked up by the police because he had drugs, he was doing E, but he also had Rohypnol with him, which is a date-rape drug. And they asked him what he was doing with that. And I just said, well, anybody found with that drug should be charged with attempted rape, because there's no other reason to have it. There's no reason why you'd want a powerful barbiturate like that to knock somebody out so you could do what you like them. You can't act, it doesn't cure headaches, it's not stress relief, it's not ketamine, it doesn't have any ulterior function, it's all it's for. So when someone got caught, but instead what they did was, they gave him a warning for carrying too much drug, and he did a month in jail for dealing. I said, well, what about that? I said, well, all the other stuff that he's in the can of is fine. You're just selling drugs at a party. Why was he carrying that stuff? Either he was going to sell it to somebody who would use it, or he was going to use it. I said, so things like that. We need this constantly. All these women and men have to prove that they're getting assaulted before we do stuff. There must be preliminaries. For example, you couldn't catch Weinstein or at the act. Do what they did with Dustin Hoffman and do what they did with Kevin Spacey. What were they doing before the event? It turns out Spacey was having champagne picnics on the stage. So basically he got young men, took them on the stage. It's big. He owned the Old Vic, which is one of the main theatres in London. It's famous for years. Every famous person you've ever met. I met Oscar winners in that bar. It's a really famous thing. And he used that as a kind of mechanism to hit on men. But you think that shows his mentality, like I said. Why would a man famous, wealthy and well-known like that need to use those mechanisms? What was going through his head? And what was going through his head was he was targeting these guys. He was preying on them. He wasn't chatting them up. What it meant was he wanted some lever, not for the event, but after the event. So when he was finished with this particular conquest, he wanted these guys to shut up and go away so he could move on to the next one. Now that, to me, shows a systematic abuse. That's not a misunderstanding. That is a predator. And whether they can justify it or not, that is if you sit in your room with your, like some Bond villain, mapping out your next step to get your conquest, then you're in danger of crossing the abuse line. Because you're seeing a person as an object. You're seeing them as a target, not as a human being. And that's why people get into trouble. And I think powerful people are so used to everything in their life getting done like that. You ever watch, they did a thing in Britain called Celebrity Big Brother, where they lock a bunch of celebrities in a house like they do, and they do it with normal people. The normal people tend to go nuts in about 2 to 3 months, start cracking up, can't handle the pressure, can't deal with it, and some of them have to leave. When they do it with celebrities, they tend to crack up within like 2 weeks, and sometimes a week, because they've got no mechanisms for dealing with things that don't rely on other people. So I think they get into a mindset of everything's there for them because of who they are. And instead of accepting some things aren't, their egos can't process it, so they just continue the same way. I mean, there's no reason, like look at Weinstein. He's a powerful man, but you've got to admit, he's not oil painting. He doesn't look after himself. He doesn't hold particularly interesting conversations. He's a one-talent pony. And yet he still thinks some of the most eligible and beautiful women on the planet want to sleep with him because he's just such a guy. It doesn't make any sense.
He's a producer, that's why.
Yeah, I know. But like I said, maybe that's part of it. We give too much power to one person. If these men's power wasn't so absolute, they wouldn't even consider doing this, even if they had the impulse, because they couldn't see any way clear to do it.
But
they wouldn't be able to hide it. They wouldn't have any way to...
Yeah, they'd have to face it.
Yeah, but that works both ways, because if like some of actresses use that because they used to sleep with the director producer because they want like be part of some brilliant movie.
That's true, but then flipping that again, Agnes, why do these women feel they have to go to these lengths? They must think that if they don't go that shortcut, they don't see another road to get the job. If they knew that you went to the casting place, it was a fair casting, you had a chance, you got the job, they probably would try that way. But when they see how corrupt it is, they think, it doesn't matter what I do. If I get to that last hurdle and that creep doesn't like me, I don't get the part, irrespective of these guys. Yeah. So they're thinking, I have to get in with him. He might not be the boost to my career, but he won't necessarily block it either. And it comes down to one person having to... Yeah, you're right. I mean, you can't blame them. If I was a gorgeous actor and I'm competing with all these other girls in the same place, and I thought, you know, because remember, most people, particularly actors, they're not, ironically enough, the most secure people in the world. They don't, you know, why would you want to spend your life being somebody else if you were self-secure in your own identity? So they don't feel that confident. So when they see a route like that, they think, I'll take it. There's many stories of actors and actresses ruining their lives because they did something stupid when they were young and it came back to bite them in the butt. But the fact is, these people, men and women, should not feel that is the only way or the best way to get to the top. If they saw other people doing it. But other actors and actors coming in, they're full of, you know, they're full of drive. They just finished drama school. They want to go on to do Les Mis, you know, and all of that. And they come up and they suddenly realise that it doesn't matter how brilliant you are. If this creep in the far corner doesn't like the look of your breasts, you're not going to be in our movie. Now, that only has to happen to you once before you start thinking that's the way the whole world is. And so you just become cynical, and then you just say, screw it, I'll go to the party, shove something up my nose to dull the pain, and go with these guys. The whole movie industry's got that element. I mean, it always has had. I mean, in the 50s and 60s, it was very overt. The studios literally controlled these people's lives. I mean, gay people had to marry straight people. It was worse than an arranged marriage. They would literally pick a couple of stars and say, you're a bit a notch below, not too threatening. You marry this person, make sure she doesn't get caught wandering the streets drunk at night. You know, you're gay, can't have any of that. We're going to have to give you a string of girlfriends. Make sure you dump them, make sure you're mean to them so people think you're a real man. And this was quite cynical. But we thought that it all disappeared. But obviously it didn't. It just went underground.
Yep.
I mean, there's a story that Piers Morgan, the creep who I've always fighting with, he was over in the States and he got to know Wallstein because he knows, he actually knows Donald Trump, so he got to know him. And he said to him, I'm doing a chat show for NBC on Monday, but the guy's pulled out. Nothing I could do. Wallstein went, oh, I know who get. Colin Firth's about. He just made the movie about the prince with the stutter. He's about. He'll be at your studio Monday morning, 2 o'clock. He'll be there at 2 in the afternoon. Don't worry about it. So Piers Morgan shrugged this off his drunken banter. 2 o'clock Monday morning, Colin Firth turns up at his office, flew back from Britain to go to do this interview. And he even said, the only reason I'm here is because Harvey told me to be here. He once tried to chat up a woman by saying, I've slept with beautiful women before, watch this. 4 in the morning he lifts the phone and Nicole Kidman comes to his yacht. She's there 5 minutes and he sends her away. Now, nobody should have that much power. It's too much power. Because we see movie stars as very powerful. But in essence, they do have their limits because they're at the mercy of their image. They can't ever do the wrong thing. We've seen people who are really, look at these guys riding high and their career stalled over a single incident. So they can't do too much of that. They're in their own plane of existence. They don't have a fan base. So when they go to work, they're not surrounded by people like us. They're surrounded by cynical movie execs and Wallsteins who couldn't care less about anything except the bottom line. So we would think someone like as influential as Colin Firth, who just got an Oscar, and Nicole Kidman, legendary actress, would be able to simply say no, but they couldn't. But it just seems to me insane that you've got an industry that millions of people, hundreds, thousands of people sometimes working on this movie, millions and millions of dollars, and one guy can say, I don't like her, I like her, put her in there. And they just did it. It just strikes me as completely insane. But are they, that what I'm saying is, that's my question. Have they fixed that though? Just removing Weinstein, have they removed the system that created him? Is there another one bubbling up as we speak?
Probably, I doubt it very much.
Exactly. Are these producers still there? I mean, do you ever hear of 7 of 9? V-Likes in
in the board,
Star Trek?
Yeah.
She married the producer, Bragg, I think his name was, of Star Trek, and she was married to him for 18 months and she divorced him. Yeah, because he was going to parties saying, this is naked pictures of her. This is 7 of 9, I'm sleeping with her, like a 15-year-old guy. Perfect strangers. He was telling them all about his sex life because it was so great and she was so good. And she went, you really did marry me just because of what I looked like. You have no consideration. And he looked at her blankly, so she divorced him. But this is the mentality. This man had literally the lives of hundreds at his fingertips and controlled millions of dollars, and he had the mentality of a 16-year-old boy. He had no idea what he was doing was wrong.
Yeah.
Again, he got away with it. He must have done that to God knows how many showbiz parties, and nobody thought, dude, why are you showing people pictures of your wife like that?
Yeah, nobody said put those away. Yeah,
nobody said, what the hell's wrong with you? You're married to this gorgeous, talented woman. Why don't you shut up and just enjoy it?
Then again, was he so powerful that they wouldn't consider telling him to put him away?
Very much so. That's what happened, yeah. They probably felt that way, but they didn't know the next, because the producers are, I mean, it's interesting, even from the dawn of time, they've been a very powerful group, because everyone makes that joke, produced by, you say, well, I know who directs it, I know the actors do, I know the light guys do, I even know what those guys do with the dolly grips. What the hell does a producer actually do?